How's it going today, guys? My name is Cal Peterson. I'm here with Marcus Freeman and Coralie Zabriskie, and we are going to be presenting our findings from our interview with Katie Slaughter, who is a primary therapist and partner at Balance House. Balance House is a treatment program in the Salt Lake Valley. We have inpatient residential treatment, sober living with outpatient, sober living without outpatient, and independent living. Our residential is in Holiday. That's where we interviewed Katie. Our sober living is up in Cottonwood Heights, and then we have our outpatient facility in Murray, and then we have our other sober living in West Jordan, then our independent living downtown in the Liberty Wells neighborhood. Balance House mainly treats young adult males, so men from the ages of 18 to 35 primarily. It's a dual diagnosis facility. We treat addiction and alcoholism, mental health. We've started working to support people with executive functioning disabilities and learning disabilities. We've brought people on for OCD therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. So as a program, we do a lot. We treat a lot of different types of clients. So I just sort of went over the background information for the organization, but we will also be diving into Katie's responses from our interview, some more information about the organization and the mission, some ethical considerations for being a social worker, and some of the finer details of what it's like to work for a company like Balance House. So Marcus is going to take it from here.
First and foremost, we looked at some scholarly articles and um, did research on them. And our topic and demographic was young adult male mental health treatment with focus on BIPOC individuals.
And Marcus, what does that acronym stand for?
BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, People of Color.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
And then these were the two articles. The first one was called Addiction Doesn't Discriminate, Colorblind Racism in American Rehab. And the other one was called Crucial Role of Black, Latinx, and Indigenous Leadership in Harm Reduction and Addiction Treatment. And in these articles, we found that we need to address systemic racism and stigma found in addiction treatment, and that too often people of color are incriminated for drug abuse rather than assisted. And there should also be more BIPOC representation in addiction treatment field and more availability to accessible care. And white men dealing with addiction are often seen as individuals with mental illness, while men of color, under the same exact circumstances, are seen as criminals.
Great. Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah.
Now we're going to jump into some of the interview responses we got from Katie, and Coralie is going to take this one.
All right, we had a great time interviewing Katie. She was so candid with us and shared a lot of really great information. So, the first question we asked her was in regards to creating an anti-racist environment at Balance House. And we learned that Balance House is actually more diverse than some of the other options in Utah because the clients come from across the country. And then she talked about the importance of a person and environment context, which is something we talk about a lot in class. There's always a cultural component, and that can't be ignored. The second question we asked is Balance House is a mission-driven company, not profit driven. So, what is the mission, and how does your work support that? So Cal talked about this a little bit, but Balance House started in 2012 with the intention just to help other people. She said we didn't really know much beyond that, but they've really grown as years have passed. She said they are a relational model. They're attachment focused. So they focus on healing through relationships, and they work with families a lot. She said people could never say that we do it for the money because even when a client can't pay, they still want to keep them there and continue their care. She said last year they provided $120,000 in scholarships. At the end of the day, She said it's really about how we can provide the best environment for people to heal and for people to feel like they have support and relationships and know that they can change their life. The next question was what sets Balance House apart from a myriad of other treatment options available on the market? And she said that they really adjust. So she said we'll always try new things. So in the beginning they didn't have occupational therapists, but like Cal mentioned, they've got occupational therapists, as well as other therapists. She said it costs more, but there's just a need for it. And they just really adjust to helping their clients. The next question we asked is, how has your experience working in other fields, such as your experience in the Department of Corrections, contributed to who you are as a social worker today? Katie has a really interesting background. She actually worked with sex offenders, and she said that that was actually really useful because the clients that they're seeing now, a lot of them have sex issues, and she's better able to assess if a person is more at risk, if they have an antisocial personality disorder, or if they have trauma they need to work through. Um, she said that they have currently have a therapist getting their CSAT, which is Certified Sex Addiction Therapist. She said whenever they find a need, they meet it. The next question is, do treatment plans or goals need to be adjusted for clients based on race, ethnicity, or upbringing? And if so, how are they adjusted? She said, if you treat every client the same, you're doing them a huge disservice. Everyone is different, and she said when clients come here, they're mostly in a white homogenous group, so their experience will be different. And it's important to check in with them and be aware that their experience will be different and to understand what they're going through. Let's see, what are the barriers to treatment and recovery that BIPOC clients face currently? She talked about how our communities aren't set up for long-term care, which is the most helpful treatment. So often in Black communities, there are not a lot of resources, and the resources that do exist are short-term care. So, like the psych hospital, for example, would be an example of short-term care. And insurance doesn't cover long-term care, but that's really what is going to give people the best chance for success. Let's see. In our research, we learned that addicts of color are more often sent to jail or prison than rehab. And this practice impedes recovery, creates more trauma, and throws these young men into situations where drugs are easily accessible. We asked her, how can we start to change this? And she really put forth the idea that people's attitudes towards it need to change, especially in order for policy to change. It has to start with everybody recognizing that they are biased. We talked about this in class with Brene Brown. The conversation won't really be moved forward until everybody recognizes their bias.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Coralie, for taking that one. Now I'm going to kind of jump into some of the information about the organization that is Balance House. So first I'm just going to talk about the basic details of the job, and what your responsibilities will be as a clinician at Balance House. So your first main responsibility is going to be to take on individual clients as their therapist, right? And while they're an inpatient, they're going to meet with you twice a week for 1 hour at a time. The next responsibility you have is to facilitate family therapy where families are willing. Clients in residential will have family therapy once a week, usually via Zoom because the families are usually out of state. And we do a family intensive every 3 months, which is essentially where we get 4 to 5 families together with 3 to 4 therapists, and we do a big group therapy session with all the families that totals over 9 hours between 2 days. And then your final responsibility is to oversee group therapy as a clinician. So clinicians rotate out throughout the week to facilitate the daily group therapy sessions from Monday through Friday. Clients in residential will do a total of 16 hours of group therapy a week, with like therapists rotating out throughout the week. And then to kind of get into, what it's like to be an employee of this company. The starting salary for an LCSW is right at the average for Utah, which is $75,000 a year. However, there's a ton of opportunities for growth, whether that's on the clinical side or getting into something else. So, there's a lot of upward mobility for clinicians. You can move into a clinical director, clinical officer, assistant clinical director, or a partner position as you go. And then there's also opportunities to work into a different aspect of the program, such as admissions, a program or facility or operations director at any of our different properties. And then also maybe work internally to better train the other clinicians and just make Balance House a better place to work and, help clinicians pick up new skills. And kind of on that same note, the therapists at Balance House are always gaining new certifications so we can treat as much of a population as possible. Currently, like Coralie mentioned, we have a therapist that got their CSAT for sex addiction. We have therapists that are getting certified for OCD treatment. Another therapist that's certified for autism spectrum disorder and working with those types of clients. We have occupational therapists. We have an outdoor team for adventure therapy. So, the program's always changing, always trying to improve and add new resources for clients. And the overall job satisfaction from the various employees that I've talked to is very high. And then to kind of break down the structure here, we have just the partners because Balance House is such a huge company that we'd be here all day if I was naming every single employee. But these are all the partners. They put their own money up. Some of them put their house up to pay for Balance House. We don't have any investors. And all of our partners are boots on the ground working directly with clients. So to start, we have our CEO, who's also a partner, Mark Orther. He has a CADC certification, and he's been with Balance House since the start 13 years ago. Then we have Katie Slaughter, who we interviewed. She's a primary therapist as well as a partner at Balance House. She has her MSW from University of Utah as well as her LCSW and has been working with Balance House for 8 years. Then we have Tony Pageon. He's our president, also a partner, and occasionally is a primary therapist for clients in specific cases. He also has his MSW from University of Utah and has his LCSW and has been with Balance House since the beginning, again, 13 years ago. Then we have Katie Cardizano, who's the chief clinical officer, as well as another partner. She has her MSW, again, from University of Utah, LCSW, and LSUD-C. She's worked for Balance House for 9 years. Then we have Brandon Wall. He's the director of business development, as well as the partner, and he has his BBA from the Eccles School of Business at University of Utah. He's worked for Balance House for 7 years. Now, as a clinician, there are certain ethical considerations and boundaries you have to be aware of. The first one we talked about is just having personal boundaries with clients in order to maintain a professional relationship. Boundaries are crucial to that, and crossing those boundaries can only hurt your clients. And one thing we discussed with Katie is how that's changed since the rise in popularity of social media. She suggested that you avoid adding any clients on your social media, which, I tend to agree with. Additionally, we talked about separation of private life from professional life. Leave your private life at home when you come to work, and vice versa. Leave your work at work and don't bring it home. One great quote we got from Katie was, do your own work so that way you know what is yours and what is the client's. So, get healthy before you try to help other people, because if you haven't done your own work, you may not be able to help somebody and you could even further hinder their progress. And then finally, we touched on the idea of self-disclosure. While relating to clients is important, your time with them is for them, not for you. So that's something to always keep in mind for sure. And yeah, thank you guys. This has been a great experience. It was so incredible to have you guys meet somebody who's helped me so much in my personal life and learn more about this program that is such a huge part of my life. And yeah, I learned a lot. And thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a blast.